Welcome. This is the Domain Name Law Show. We're here every Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Pretty exciting. We have a new format. It's 30 to 40 minutes, basically. We just get to the cases fast, so it's more enjoyable on replay to have a concise show. There's 3 hosts to this show. I'm one of them. My name is Todd Ryan. My other hosts are David Michaels and Jeffrey Neuman. Let me say hi to David while we'll check his mic and get the show rolling. What's up, David? Yep, pretty good. Could be a tiny bit louder. No, it sounds good. I mean, I can hear you. Mine, I was having issues on calls. People were telling me your mic's low, and I had to unplug and plug back in. That's the first time I've had that issue, but no, yours sounds good. All right, I wanted to say the show is sponsored by domainescrow.com, new sponsor. Basically, it's a service that we offer through the law firm at JJN Solutions, and things are really picking up in that area. But if you sell a domain name and you need to make sure it's a secure transaction with a intermediary, basically a neutral third party to handle the transaction, check out domainescrow.com, and you can calculate the rates. You can basically, start a transaction. You can do anything of the above. But if you ever, and there's a phone number there too, if you need some help, by phone, we're more than glad to help you there too. I know Jeff was going to try to make it today, but this is our last week. Basically, really, next Wednesday is the last day for GTLD applications. So that's when the window closes, August 12th. However, all applications really try to have them in this week. You don't want to wait till the last minute. So that's what we've been working on, really, I say all morning, all week, all month, the last month. But exciting time. We're going to be able to share a lot too after the window closes, and then reveal date is mid-October, and that'll be interesting to see what strings were applied for, who applied for them, and so on. So today we'll jump right into our cases. Our very first case, if you're following along, you can check it out at dnlshow.com/outline. Our first case today is the domain samsale.top. So I'll spell it for you, samsale.top. Okay, interesting case for the reason that Suncast Corporation was the complainant here. So they're a big manufacturer out of Florida. They make a lot of, I know products you buy for your kitchen, but products, I guess, tools as well. But anyway, a lot of different types of products they sell at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, Target, so on. They have a mark for Suncast.com. They're going after this name samsale.top because they say SAM, S-A-M, is an abbreviation for Suncast American Made. So they went to this website. It came to their attention somehow, and the website had Suncast products using the Suncast mark and so on. I thought maybe they're trying to sell Suncast products and have a fair use, option to this name. But when I went to the name samsale.top, I show it's not resolving anymore. Is that what you show, David? Did you see anything at samsale.top? Yeah, I think. Yeah, so the domain samsale.top. So the website's not resolving now, but the complainant in this case, Suncast, said it's, they're infringing on our mark, but basically they're cyber squatting on this name. And there was a solo member panelist here. Alan Limberry was the solo panelist. But to get right to the findings, first I'll say the respondent didn't respond. Okay. The panelist was looking through the very first prong and said, I don't find this to be identical or confusingly similar to your trademark. You're saying, your trademark Suncast, we're going to go through, does it have your trademark or a portion of your trademark or your trademark plus another term? Well, Alan said, no, I don't see any of it. Basically, you haven't convinced me that this domain name is confusingly similar to your trademark. So to get to the end of the story, Alan said you weren't successful in the first prong, so it's not even important that we look at the other two. So this was a complaint denied. But the interesting part is they did submit evidence showing, look, they're using our mark on the website. They have our products on the website. And, interesting that you would think if you run across a website that's, say infringing, that's basically impersonating a mark holder, that the UDRP would be the forum to file a complaint and it would make sense. But there's exceptions to it, and this is one of the exceptions, and I'll mention a few others. But David, when you saw this case, is that what first came to mind to you, that samsale.top? How is that confusingly similar to the Suncast trademark?
Just do takedown. That's all. So I don't know why they wasted money on the UDRP. Do you?
I wanted to apologize to listeners on replay because on YouTube streaming it looked like my audio was working, but now I got yours, David. So, but anyways, that's all back up. Okay, so I'm assuming on their websites at Suncast, they must have Suncast American Made in some places, and they probably have the S, A, and M highlighted. And so they weren't probably stretching it as a complaint. This website was probably brought to their attention. They saw the name of it, samsale.top, and said, hey, the reason they're using, trying to sell our products or redirect or confuse people and then using our mark is because sometimes we do have on our site SAM. Basically, I don't think it was a stretch for them thinking, hey, let's start searching websites that have SAM in them. Or when they did see this, they realized, and maybe we don't see the website that was up under samsale.top. It certainly could have had, Suncast American Made and admitted to what they were, what acronym SAM stood for the site. Anyway, there was another, I like that Alan referred to another case, and he referred to a case where the disputed domain name was ticketsmofo.com. And we know all the time you go to the place and you're like, hey, you're with your wife and you're about ready to try to get into the arena and you don't have the tickets on you, they're in their purse, and you're like, give me the tickets, mofo. I was trying to think this whole time. Anyway, ticketsmofo.com was a disputed domain name, and Vivid Seats, who's a big known sort of a reseller, they're a big firm in the ticket business, Vivid Seats, but they were the complainant in that case against Tickets Mofo. And the panelist said, even though this ticketsmofo.com is mirroring your website, it does not include your trademark, and it's not confusingly similar to your mark. So this is not a case for the UDRP. Basically denied that case, just like Alan denied this case and said, hey, you know, maybe they did have a file it like a DMCA takedown, and that's why the site isn't resolving anymore. So they may have filed a DMCA takedown with the registrar or the hosting company and said, hey, they got our copyrighted material all over the site, and that's what got the site taken down. And then of course they do have rights. I mean, they have standing to file a trademark infringement case if they felt like there was true infringement before. We don't get to see the site, so I don't know what evidence they submitted. But anyway, Alan said, fantastic. They may have wronged you, but this is not the place to get it corrected. So I'm dismissing this case, and the domain owner got to keep the domain name. We'll see. Now that they can't do anything on it, looks like there's the material's down. Don't know if Suncast would file a lawsuit. I think they've accomplished what they want by getting the material taken down. But I think it's interesting for domain owners to know. All right, well, if you got a domain name and it doesn't include a trademark owner's trademark or any part of it, you may be in the wrong in some other capacity, but would it still have a defense in a UDRP? So I think it's not uncommon sometimes anyway, domain, I say this really is a cyber squatter in a sense, but to use a domain name that doesn't include the mark, but you're still taking advantage of a trademark owner's mark and their rights, and you should be stopped. But basically Alan was saying in this case, this is not a case for UDRP. But anyway, so the name samsale.top stays with the domain owner, even though it did have a lot of infringing material on there. But that's an interesting aspect of the UDRP. It really is for names that include the mark owner's mark or part of it. It's got to be confusingly similar. So on its own, samsale.top didn't meet that requirement. Okay, the next case we're going to get to quickly is the Zillows.com. Well, we can imagine who the complainant is in this case. It's the company that owns Zillow. That's MFTB Holdco, Inc. Anyway, represented by a big law firm out of Minnesota. The respondent, Larry Levins, out of China. Larry, of course, he's over there in China. It's a popular Chinese name, Larry Levines. Okay, so the domain name, thezillows.com. This was also decided by a single member panelist, Sandra Franklin. David, tell us the facts of this case, how you read them, and go ahead and give us the decision too.
So this guy whose last name is not Zillow or Zillows puts up a website that looks like a real estate site that's quite similar to the Zillow.com website. And let me tell you, the only difference is you don't see homes at the beginning. You see a mortgage, loans link, but it doesn't actually work. But what I do see is, you scroll down, you see some homes you can search, and they are U.S. homes, not Chinese homes. So I don't know where this Larry particular character decided to come up with this and see how he's going to monetize it. It doesn't really make any sense. Something is going to, doomed to failure. It's not going to last long. And he lost the case because, look, you can't directly infringe a trademark like that. He's not even like a Zillow agent. He's just straight up saying, hey, I'm Zillow. And he actually has content on the site that impersonates Zillow and its history since 2006. So I don't know what his game was, but it was a waste of time and money. What do you think?
When did you find the site in archives? Because I go and fails to open the page. Am I just having browser problems? But so is it up now?
It's open for me. They were open this
Zillows.
morning for me. I took screenshots. I took pictures and saw my profile on X.
Yeah, put in the S, I guess. The Zillows.
It's in one of my replies. Hmm.
Okay, I see it. Yeah, so he really did it up, huh? The Zillows.com, and then he's got in the browser bar, Zillow with a registered, the R with a circle around it. Zillow official website. That's what you see under the Zillows too, David?
Yes.
Yeah, so he was
And
asking
at
for it.
first I was wondering, okay, did the Zillow company get it already? And it's like, no, I went to their site and their site is totally different. So this is the actual site. And so the decision actually mentions the mortgage offering. So actually, does it? Or loans? Let's see. Loans.
Yeah. The guy was like trying to get
Yeah,
loans.
it's a home loan website. Yeah.
Boy, I don't know if he was
So
just
that was
sometimes, I mean, it's so flagrant, but unless someone just is so ignorant of the law to think, I'm going to do this and I'm going to put up this site and then I'm going to get the leads. And as long as, I'm honest in my loan business, I give, reasonable rates and we're a real company. Just doesn't know you cannot benefit from someone else's mark in this way, obviously. But yeah, so this was really an easy decision, which was a transfer by Sandra Franklin to say, one, yeah, it includes Zillow right in the domain name, the Zillows, and pretty creative when you think about it, the Zillows. I mean, because there's just probably nothing with Zillow in it that's even available. A lot of things that make sense because people pick them up and don't know. But anyway, the Zillows, she said, yeah, that's, obviously includes it. So they meet the first prong, and then under right legitimate interest with the total, the complainant made a prima facie case saying, yeah, they're not, this guy Larry Levine's not known by the Zillows. We didn't give him any rights to use this and so on. So without an answer, and there was probably going to be no explanation here anyway, found that they did satisfy the second prong and then registered use in bad faith. It looks like they just registered this name. I don't know, was it 2026? But pretty easy complaint. So I included that one. I don't know why. Transfer. It's a reasonable, makes sense transfer. Good decision. Okay, this last case, we're really getting through these things quickly today. This last case, I think was, I don't like the decision. I'll tell you from the start. WPCU.com is the domain name. It's a 4-letter domain name. In this case, the complainant is a credit union out of Ohio, Wright Patterson Credit Union, I think. But that was the name of something going on in their state. But anyway, WPCU is the disputed domain name. This law firm, said, hey, our client has been using this name since, I guess, was it 60s? But yeah, 1962. But they've really been going by this acronym, WPCU, since 1995, 96. And we can show it. They must have submitted some evidence because we don't see the evidence, but it's in the summary that they submitted evidence showing that they have been, they are known by WPCU. The respondent in this case, Nancy Nettie, Nancinettete, didn't respond, and it was important because the complainants did bring up that she's been part of a bunch of cases, a bunch of UDRPs, and I'm assuming lost most of them because they were saying that they were, in the summary, it was sort of, you couldn't really understand. I think probably won even a few of the cases, but they had registered this name back in 1997. So that was my problem with this. They registered it back in 1997. The complainant's saying they had basically a common law trademark as early as 1995. Knowing, so when this person registered this name in 1997, were they targeting this credit union out of Ohio? And did they know of this, of this complainant? I think no, but when they don't answer, the respondent didn't answer in this case, the solo panelist, who in this case was Scott Blackmer, made the leap that they did know about it. So when they registered this name, they registered it in bad faith, which just makes me think, if this was a 3-letter domain, WPC, and the same set of facts, just this company, this credit union was known by WPC, let's say, and they had supplied the exact same set of facts, just referring to themselves as WPC instead of with the U. But this person, because there were 3 letters that were registered in 1997, that weren't the greatest letters, WPC, or yeah. So would they have transferred away a 3-letter domain name knowing that people register these short names because they're rare and valuable, and people even knew it? Domain investors, some of them knew it back in the 90s. But anyway, so this, David, I'll throw it to you. Tell him what else Scott Blackmer, mentioned when he was deciding this case, knowing that it's just a bunch of information from the complainant, this credit union, no response from the domain owner, and then the panelist is there to sort through the complaint and just make his decision.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So a couple of things. This domain name was in use by a credit union in Oregon called Wood Products Credit Union, and that ended in 2006. They dropped the name and went through a GoDaddy auction. Somebody else got the name and started a WordPress site on it that didn't go anywhere. It was just a generic site, and that ended in 2018. And in December 2018, there was a GoDaddy auction for this particular domain name, and it sold for $4,155 USD. And it's a valuable name because, WPCU.net sold for $3,500 on Sato in 2013. And there are multiple users of these letters. When I first saw the domain on your list, I thought it was WordPress that filed this complaint, because WP normally stands for WordPress. But there are a lot of acronyms for this, including World Peace, Collective Union, or something like that, out of Hawaii, and another one out of Ohio. So this particular person, or Nancy Nettie, they allege that she has 60 prior UDRPs, but I looked up in UDRP.tools and she had none. But then when I just search for Nettie, I get a lot. But I have to go through each one of them to know which ones are her and which ones are somebody else. So I went to securitytrails.com and entered this domain name, and I got some new information. So this domain was actually parked at ParkLogic since December 2018 until the present. And the complainant says, no, it was only parked there from 2021 through February 2026. And so, and now it's like a different kind of site, but it's still parked there. And you know what? The panelists assumed that Nancy obtained this domain name this year, and therefore, or the transfer, because the trademark was applied for in 2019 with a very skimpy um, specimen for the trademark application. And they just finished their Section 8, Section 15 renewal and declaration of incontestability to avoid cancellation based upon fraud, because their trademark had never been used properly with all the services claimed in the application as of the filing date, and even up to the date of this new renewal. So the way to cancel this trademark now is through an expungement proceeding. You can do it for up to first 10 years of registration. And there are 2 services specifically on the list of list of services that they say they do, but they don't, because it says they don't on their website, that they are provided by a third party. because you can't be a registered broker dealer and a credit union at the same time. So it's provided through a third party. And so I feel like in that respect, there was some fraudulent information provided to the UDRP panel in this complaint. And since this domain is registered through GoDaddy in 1997, I believe that if this respondent were to file an ACPA complaint, she would get the name back and she could actually go for damages against the complainant for making the false statements, because any false statement can ding you in court, as well as maybe even potentially cancel their trademark in an administrative proceeding before the TTAB. And that anybody has standing to do that in the first 10 years on the Trademark Modernization Act. So I encourage anybody who feels like doing it to go ahead and do it, because I think that this credit union did something wrong here. They did update their website since they filed their specimen of use for their most recent trademark renewal. So most of the services on there are supported now, but there's still a couple, two or three that are not supported anymore. So go for it, have fun. But yeah, this is one of those juicy cases that, if you're into ACPA litigation, this is the one you want to do, as long as there's a Nancy Nettie around who's actually going to sign up to say, okay, I'll be your client.
I think people, it costs you money even in a UDRP.
Or not?
I was say it costs you even money in a UDRP to. Go ahead.
Yeah, if she just responded and said, hey, I got this name in an auction, GoDaddy in 2018, here's my receipt, and here's the domain name parking history at ParkLogic, she would have won right away. She wouldn't need to sue. But now, because she didn't respond, and she apparently has lost 60 prior domain name cases, that's a big problem going forward, especially if she has a whole bunch of names parked at ParkLogic. So you really do have to respond. Some panelists will say, well, I'm going to assume that the acquisition date was before the trademark asserted by the complainant, because the trademark wasn't applied for until 2019. And that specimen didn't really support a trademark. So this case should have been denied on that alone. But
yeah, I think if
anyway, yeah.
I was going to say, David, I think if they, wouldn't want them to take down the website when there's a complaint, but then it would sure get the attention of the domain owner. Now we know as domain investors, and we're familiar, those of us listening here, familiar with the UDRP a bit. So you get a notice, you may consider it, as a real notice as opposed to somebody who's never heard of a UDRP gets a notice saying, hey, your domain name is infringing on somebody else's mark. They're complaining about it, and they filed this complaint with this service provider. You might think, I don't know if I believe it or not, but I'm not going to touch it, and you don't respond. And then you go to your domain name, and of course, they lock it so you can't make any changes to the DNS, but most of the time you weren't anyway. So you don't know, you go to your domain name and you think, nothing's changed there, because what I'm getting at is, you need to respond to these UDRPs. Why are so many people not responding still? And now what you could do is, and I'd recommend it, if you don't want to spend any money on a lawyer, take the complaint, run it through your, the AI of your choice, and you can always clean it up after, but say, hey, I need a response to this. I need it to be, I'm not going to give you prompts, but the more specific you are and what resources you tell it to look at, like UDRP.perspectives, that's UDRPperspectives.org. And there's, the WIPO guidelines and stuff like that. The point is, you need to respond. This is the domain we're talking about right now is WPCU.com. So the person lost the name. You go to the domain and it has different, I don't know, it goes through different websites. I don't know, is that still ParkLogic doing that? But I got one that was like, hey, you need to, an antivirus type thing, that scareware. And then I just went to it again as we were on this show.
Yeah, ParkLogic. ParkLogic does this 0-click reroutes. It's crazy. That's why I never use ParkLogic, and they don't defend you if you lose your name or are subject to a UDRP complaint. And they're really they're controlling your name. So
Yeah.
I definitely never use them. I've attended their webinars over the last 6 years a few times, and they've never improved. So I stay away from parking. It's just crazy.
Yeah, funny. Michael Gilmore, who runs ParkLogic, sent me a request on LinkedIn today. I thought I was probably already connected with him, but no, I like Michael, and I know his son was working with him now. I remember talking with them both at the last ICA event. But yeah, when I go to the website, WPCU.com, goes to there, forwards there, forwards there. I don't know. I didn't know that's how their parking system worked. But anyway, when I went to it earlier today, it said, your computer's infected. You need to do this. So the panelists said, hey, when you're using, the panelists just frankly said, the registration and use of disputed domain name constitutes bad faith because he said, not only about the numerous UDRP proceedings against that particular third party, but when you're using a name for illegitimate or illegal activity and it redirects to third-party sites, likely malware downloads, that constitutes bad faith. So if it was always with ParkLogic and it sent it to what a panelist felt like was some third-party site that, was providing malware downloads, I mean, then it's obviously on them. I mean, anyway, so it's a case where the page that it resolved to absolutely affected the outcome of this UDRP. The panelist just flat out said that in addition to the pattern of bad faith by the respondent is why the panel found the third element, which is bad faith registration and bad faith use. But anyway, just when you see a acronym like this, did the person really get it to target the company, or what happened is, since they didn't respond, the complainant went to the website, saw that it had sort of like malware there, and then did it in reverse and said, okay, that's bad faith because, it's a bad faith use. We'll try to convince the panelists that it was bad faith registration. We didn't give them rights to use it, so we'll just make this prima facie case that it's no legitimate use. And I believe we can show that we have the trademark rights to those initials, WPCU, as opposed, as an acronym, as opposed to the full out name of the, company, Wright Patterson Credit Union or whatever it is. But yeah, David, WP stands for WordPress, but any W 4-letter, of course, those can be call letters for broadcast stations, radio or TV. So, if you own WPCU, I'd think if I searched it and I saw this one credit union, I'd think, good, they may want it. I doubt, they may never go for it. I didn't know there was a .coop extension because that's what the complainant operates on. WPCU.coop. So I didn't know that either. Learned that new. And all I do is deal with strings and extensions and, don't know all the existing 1,200 that are out there. Didn't know co-op, coop. But, all right. So now it looks like they got their .com after all this time. Should they, that's how easy it is. Panelists can decide. And then this company probably wanted that for a long time. And now they're like, geez, we got it. And it was easy, $1,500. And, easy peasy. All right. We got a lot we're going to cover on Thursday on the DNX show. Josh is back after holiday. That's a space where we can get a little more involved in the conversation about domain investing. No topics are off limits. So that's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on X. We stream also on YouTube. Catch these replays on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Before we shut down today, I want to say once again, if you're a domain broker or a domain investor, you're a buyer of a domain name, and you need escrow services, check out domainescrow.com. You can look through, you have a lot of questions, have a lot of answers for you there, and you can check the rates. You can calculate what a transaction would cost. You could go to the frequently asked questions, and pretty much everything is answered. If you need any other assistance, you can always call the 888 number there, or you can just send an email to me at todd@jjnsolutions.com. But it's interesting. Very happy to provide this safe, secure service. And what we're doing different than escrow.com is we're making sure distributions are a lot faster, and lease to own terms are implemented a lot smoother, and we protect both sides, the buyer and the seller, and make sure, like I said, distributions are made quickly to the seller. And if there is any defaults, we make sure that the buyer has a chance to cure things. But if they don't, we quickly make sure the domains are back in the seller's control if a buyer defaults. But basically, just providing safe, secure escrow services for less than the competition, and making sure that we do it, securely and quickly. As I'm saying, as a domain investor and someone who's done transactions and has used other escrow services, when everything is done, basically when both parties have met their part of the agreement, send over the money, pay it out, no delays. Okay, so that's trying to just do things as efficiently as possible, but also handling it in a personable way, basically a sort of customized way. So we do most things, they're automated, but I get involved and make sure everything is, if somebody wants to speak to someone, you can speak to me, and then also just make sure that the distributions are done quickly, more quickly than any other place. Certainly, that's I was going to say guaranteed, but make sure that happens. All right, well, thanks for joining us. Thanks, David. Appreciate your time. Next week, we're going to have 3 new cases. Jeff will be back. We're finishing up the GTLD round, but boy, it's exciting time. Busy, that's all we do. But be sure, bring some topics. Join me and Josh on Thursday, because we have a lot to cover. There's been a lot of news. I love on X a lot of the topics that come up, people disclosing sales, buyers out there disclosing purchases of domain names, and then, of course, the group of domain investors that are on X and their comments. So a lot of personalities in the domain space and a lot of conflicting opinions on things. But Josh and I are going to go over a lot of topics on Thursday. So bring yours. We have plenty, but it's all about domain investing. So join us Thursday for the DNX show. And then next week here for the Domain Name Law show, we're going to do that, of course, every Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, take care of yourself. Talk to you soon.